Hi, I'm Sandy Fowler, co-founder of Mighty Parenting, and bear with us a second here. We're trying to get Judy Davis and I both on here together. So this is something we haven't done before. Give us just a few seconds here to figure out the technology side of this, and we'll get Judy in here. She should be joining us any second. But we wanted to talk about this college admissions scandal because as parents, it's just so frustrating. You know, we're trying to teach our kids to do great things, to work hard, to reach for their dreams, and this just feels like such a huge blow to that. And having trouble with the Judy. Oh, there she is. Okay, yay. Okay, so we're still having trouble with this. Judy, you need to, oh, there we go. And it says you need to request to join as a guest in the broadcast now that I flipped my little switch here. And while she's doing that, anyway, it's still trying to make that work. But, you know, we tell our kids to do these things and we want them to reach their dreams. We want them to get what they want in life. We want them to live a happy life. Oh, yay, here we go. And so, where are you?
There I am here. I am here.
Yay!
We did it. We did it.
Yeah, there were like a few levels that I had to go through to do permissions and stuff before I could get you in. So I don't know how much of that you heard, but basically I was just, I was talking about what's going on and how frustrating this is as parents. And you sit there and you get angry and you want to blame people and you want to do something about it. And you start questioning if you're even telling your kids the right thing. Should I even be pushing them to do these things? And so what we wanted to do is talk about this from a Mighty Parenting perspective. We want to push past all the rhetoric that's out there. Yes, it's being dealt with, and you can certainly keep an eye on that if you want to see what happens. But at Mighty Parenting, we always look at something, okay, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to my family? What do we take from this, and what can we do in our own home to deal with it? And one of the lessons from this for us is to talk to our kids and go, life isn't always fair. This isn't about fair. So that's one piece that we can take from it. But there's a whole nother piece, which is still kind of a cultural piece, and that is the pressure that has come about with college. Pressure that every kid needs to go to college. Pressure that if you're going to go, you need to go into a STEM field. Pressure that you have to go to an elite institution. And that's the place that I'm getting a lesson. And then it's reminding me, this is something I'm passionate about anyway, but it's that reminder that we can let go of the hero worship about the elite institutions. We don't need to do that. What we can do is just focus on our kids. So there's two pieces, Judy, I want to talk about on this elite institution side. One is that I'm trying to decide which one to do first. I'm thinking first, let's just talk about the fact that we have misconceptions about elite institutions. I had my eyes open to this when Malcolm Gladwell did a Google Talk. And what his whole talk was about elite institutions in general and how we revere them and we worship them and we do things for them and to be part of them that we would never do someplace else. And as he went through it, he looked specifically at Ivy League colleges. And he looked at what happened to people after they graduated. And you can Google Malcolm Gladwell Google Talk, and you can actually see it's on YouTube or wherever on the web. So you can watch his whole talk. But in there, he went through a study where they had looked at, I think, it was either econ or finance majors. And they compared what happened to them in the real world after they graduated. And they compared the kids from the Ivy League schools to kids who were comparable, kids who would be accepted or had been accepted at Ivy Leagues but went someplace else. And when they looked at it, what they found is that the college you attended didn't determine your success. And they define success by that field, like publishing papers is the way that you define success in the field they were looking at. And so when they looked at that, they found that kids who went to an Ivy and were A students did great. So did kids who went to other colleges and were A students. They also did great. And the Ivies might, I can't remember for sure if they had a little bit of an edge, but what happened was if you were a B student or a C student at the Ivy, if you weren't the top tier of the top tier, you did worse than your counterparts who went to another school. So it was proof, social proof, that it's not just about the name, that having that name is not a guarantee of happiness and success, which is really what parents are looking for when they push their kids to do this. Or when, you know, if the kid goes and you know, makes some comment about maybe wanting to go in an Ivy and a parent jumps on board, a lot of times we don't even realize it, but that's our motivation, is we want our kid to be happy. We want them to be successful. And we've been kind of brainwashed that the only way to do that, or not the only way, but the way to really do that, to guarantee it, would be an Ivy League education.
You know, it's interesting because I looked at this whole scandal from a whole different point. I'm sitting here listening to you, and for me, it wasn't about the Ivy League education. It's kind of interesting. Where my brain was at when I heard all this is the lengths to which the parents went to ensure that their kids got an upper leg from everywhere else. And as a parent,
right, but that's, so actually that ties in with what and maybe I wasn't clear. It was this pressure that parents feel to get their kids the best education. And that's where I want to kind of learn from, is pull back on this pressure that we feel on ourselves. I mean, I think it's just sad that these parents felt this is what they needed to do.
Well, and what they did wasn't just about the bribing to get in the college. They hired people to write essays. They hired people to coach them. And it's perpetuated at those universities. And where these people did, it was, my kid isn't doing good enough, so I'm going to give them an upper leg to ensure. And like you said, it's all about the pressure we're putting on ourselves as parents to give our kids something that they may not have, to have a life that we believe they should have. So the lesson comes back to, it's, you know, and it's a cultural thing. And I'd love to like brainstorm some thoughts about it. But to me, if we're as parents writing essays, helping push scholarship applications, you know, doing whatever we can to get them into these places that we believe will give them the upper hand and get them successful, we need to rein back and go, does that matter? Just like you said, it's not about where they go. The question becomes, what is important? What does college actually give you? It's not about.
And are they ready for that? You said that too. Yeah. And I love that. Because yes, so take a step back from the scandal and let's look at ourselves and go, did we write part of an essay for our kids? How involved did we get, or are we getting? Are we pushing them to join activities and to do certain types of activities throughout junior high or high school years so they can get into the best college, whatever
or
that
even
means
while they're
for
in
them.
college? What are you encouraging them? What sororities, what fraternities, what activities are you pushing so that they have the right things on their resume? It's not about that.
No, because like you said, if they're not even ready for the experience they're going to get someplace. It's the process of getting to wherever it is you want to go trains us and teaches us and grows us to be the person we need to be able to be there and then make use of being there wherever there is. It could be a college, it could be a trade school, it could be, you know, starting a business, it could be anything that we have going on in our life.
Right, right. And so as parents, you know, go back to the initial question is, you know, the scandal brings to light a lot of issues and situations that are going on. And the funny thing is, it's not a new thing. You know, it is something that's been going on for a long time in elite circles, you know, and who you know is more important than what you do. And all of that mindset, it's been going on forever. So what is it that's making it so intense right now? And I think it's just, as a parent, I go, with all of the things and challenges my child is facing day in and day out, and the pressure they're already feeling from being so in front of the world and their whole lives are being judged, this is another layer that is going on top of all of the pressure they're feeling. And as parents, in our quest to help, because I do believe that all the parents that did this for their children were trying to help. I'm just choosing to believe that they're doing what they can to help their.
I did too. It's wrong.
Right.
And we're not condoning what they did in any way, shape, or form. We're just trying to get behind it and go, okay, why did they do that, and what can we learn from it? And that is, it's that the definition of overhelping. They overhelped in a way that it's illegal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's like, why did they overhelp? It's because of the pressure. It is because all the stuff our kids are dealing with, the parents are seeing that. They're seeing that their kids they're not just competing with the people at their high school. They're competing globally. And then when you get into college, they're now competing on a whole different level. So I want to go back to this place of, what is it that we can do? Because we want to help our kids. We want to take those pressures off. We want to give them a hand up. But how do you do that without one being illegal, like you just said?
Yeah, let's definitely skip anything illegal. Even if we disagree on the methodology of how to get there, let's all agree that we want to keep it legal.
Right. But how do you actually give your child a hand up, not a hand out? Because in my mind, that's the line that was crossed.
Well, and what does it do to the kid?
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking about this, you know, how do these kids feel? You know, I don't know if the kids knew what mom and dad did or not, or if they knew certain things and not others, but what message is it sending your kid? Or like we said, even backing off, going into our own life and go, you know, when did I maybe cross some lines and do stuff for my kid that I shouldn't have done, that was their responsibility to do? What message did that send? Did I just, essentially, you end up telling them, I don't think you can handle this yourself, so I'm going to do it. I know I've done that. I don't know that it's necessarily crossing a line per se, but I know that that was one of the things I had worked on really hard a few years ago, was just not over helping, even from little things like, you know, maybe it's doing their laundry when it's their job, or packing up their lunches, or just making sure that they have themselves organized and they're showing up places on time and asking, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get that? All those little things keep sending that message of, I don't think you can do this yourself. And so I think one thing we can do, Jude, is just look at the tiny places in our lives where we might be overhelping. We've talked about this on the show. Our experts have told us this. And every time it comes up in the different formats, overhelping our kids harms them and stops them from being ready to be adults.
And here's the thing. We also need to stop living through our kids. We need to stop, you know, it feels really good to, you know, I'm thinking back to when my kids were in their senior year. And all the parents are going, my kid's going here, my kid's going here. And let me tell you, it feels good to say, my kid got a full ride scholarship to XYZ. And for some reason, that gives us that feeling of, oh, thank goodness we did it right. And isn't that what we're all looking for as parents anyway? The validation that what we've done as parents is good for our kids. But
that's really interesting. Well, do you
no,
mind if we take that for a second? So I hadn't thought about it, but as parents, how do you ever know if you did a good job? The only way to know if you did a good job is if your kid is whatever. I mean, you'll fill in the blank. Some people would say successful, some would say happy, some say living a good life. But that is, and I never thought about it, but it's in a warped way, it's our validation. Mm-hmm. Even though there's only so much we can do. You know, you do the best you can with the hand you're dealt. And some kids are going to be okay no matter what you do, and some are going to be messed up no matter what you do until they're ready to, you know, get help they need or whatever. But societally and just as human beings, we look for validation that we've done a good job on something, and our society says, oh, you did a good job, when, you know, your kid is achieving goals and milestones
that are defined outside of the family structure. And
yes.
That's the kicker. And you know, so here we have these elite parents who want their kids to give them an upper hand. And in all fairness, those families are under a microscope, even more so than any of us commoners, you know, but it's like they're looking for validation, and their threshold of what shows that they've done a good job might be completely different than ours. So, you know, going back to the whole thing of, we have to let our kids live their lives, and college or the years after high school is when they begin to do that. And so if we can just trust in the fact that, yeah, we might have screwed up a bunch, we might have made mistakes, and it still is their lives, and we have to let go. We have to allow them to fail or allow them to struggle, because that's when they grow. And what's happened, and I think that this whole scandal, in my mind, the biggest thing that comes from it is that as parents in general, it has become very, very difficult to let our kids fail, because we take that as our failure. And so if we can look at it and go, you know, we're raising up until the time that they're off on their own or go away, it's like, we don't have any control anyway. We think we do, but really and truly, we're raising an individual human being. And our best way to do that is to empower them with the skill sets and coping strategies to handle life. And life isn't fair. Like you said at the top of the hour, life isn't fair. Life doesn't always work out. And some things you need connections and need a hand up to even have it be possible. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but we have to let our kids find their way more often than we do when they're younger, so that when they're older, we don't feel the need to step in, because they're finding success on their own, and we're finding our own life outside of needing validation that we did a good job.
Right. And part of that also, I think, is teaching them to not choose their life based on society's opinions and norms, which is what ties back into kind of what I started with too, with some of society's ideas about, in this case, it happens to be elite institutions, but it's also society's thoughts about what is success, and, you know, what's going to be a meaningful life, and what people should be doing and what the time frame is, you know, that, oh, right after high school is when you go to college. Well, not for some people. Oh my gosh, there was a meme that came across Facebook yesterday, cartoon that somebody did, where I don't remember the exact wording, but essentially it said, oh, you know, I was always told by the adults in my life that if I didn't straighten out and fix my grades, I'd be the garbage man. But they forgot to tell me that the garbage man makes more than you.
Well, and
you know, it's just what it's these judgments and things. So I think that, like you said, Judy, you know, letting our kids live their lives, but as parents, two pieces of that. One piece is guidance of, don't take on society's norms and structures. Don't take on their opinion of what your life should be. Think about what you want. And if you don't know what you want, just do something then for a little while and give yourself more time and more experience to see what you want. You know, we've had interviews. We had a number of interviews on educational programs, and I'm trying to remember the name of the one where we looked at, you know, where kids can go and they can take boot camps now that give them the skills to go get the good first job, and then they can decide if they want to go to college or not. Because the skills, you know, what college, some of the jobs college used to get you, like being a salesperson, you don't need college for anymore, but you need certain skills. Like you have to know how to run this software program.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, that's one thing we can do is stop pressuring our kids, like you said. Two is don't give in to society's norms. And then a third one as a parent is, I think we can hold space for our kids while they're experimenting. I think that where we can let Mama Bear and Papa Bear kind of come out is the other people who try to put in their 2 cents or try to make our kids feel bad or just make, I'd say, ignorant comments. They're not trying to be mean. They're not trying to be pushy. They just don't understand our philosophy on raising our kid, or they don't understand the way we see building a good life. And I think we can be Mama Bear, Papa Bear about those things. I know I did that, you know, with my daughter. She took a year off college when she was after her sophomore year, and people gave, I don't want to say they gave her a hard time about it, but they didn't understand it. And they were scared. People who cared about her were afraid that this would mess up her life. And how do you explain that when you're done with college and you're interviewing for jobs? It's going to make you look bad. And all these comments would come out. And that's a place where I think that we can still help them, is we can hold space for them to be what they need to be and do what they need to do.
Well, and, you know, it goes back to this whole idea that we can't live our kids' lives. We can't protect them from everything. We have to take every single day, one moment at a time. I mean, that's like, you know, Direction Diva, I drill it in. It's all about the moments that happen. And if we don't allow our kids to explore and understand, and I'm not saying explore to the detriment of rules and boundaries and things like that. I mean, if you're letting your kid come home for a year to figure out what they're doing, well, guess what? They have responsibilities at home. It's not free for all, let's just play around. It's right. You give them, you know, they have to be a contributing member of the household, financially, if they're older, physically, emotionally. You know, it's not that you're coming and bringing a 10-year-old back in your house. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if we really and truly have those conversations and look at our children as individuals and understand what it is they need in that specific moment, we can better guide them, sit next to them. I know Dennis Tratine, he says, be a passenger. And until we understand what's going on in our kids and what
I just want, so yeah. When Dennis talks about, he talks about let your kid be in the driver's seat of their own life. You have to move to the passenger seat as they get
right.
older.
And that doesn't mean that you let them take you all over the country because it's their whim. It means that, you know, you're there to guide them to what it is they want. And you can't do that until you know what they want. And I remember when my son, he left school after his crisis and everything like that. And, I just assumed that once he got this help he needed, got the meds he needed, got the coping strategies he needed, that he would go back. And I said to him, so what's the plan? What is your next step? After he had been about a year in recovery and treatment and things like that, I'm like, what's the next step? And he looked at me and he said, college isn't for me, but I don't know what the next step is. And so in that moment, I went, oh my God, what do you mean college isn't for you? In my head. But I had learned enough through my own therapy and trying to be there for him. I learned that he needed to figure that out for himself, because if he didn't figure it out for himself, if he didn't write the essay, if he didn't do the things and all of that, then he would have no ownership of his life ever. And to me, that's the thing that this whole scandal is robbing our kids of. What those parents have done is taken away that child's drive, motivation, and their own personal ownership of their life. And as parents, that's what we want our kids to do, is take responsibility for their lives. And in my son's case, it took him almost 4 years to figure out where he would land.
And that was not easy for you. I just want to jump in and say that, because listening to you talk about it now, it's like, oh yeah, he was taking ownership, he was doing stuff. That was hard. I remember conversations with you as you struggled really, trying to decide, how do we help him? When do we actually, do we buy him a car because he needs to get to work? And, there were all these things that you struggled with mightily. And because you kept hands off, he's now one of the most...
I wish I was as together as him now.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the most together, not just young people, one of the most together people I know, and responsible people. Well, because he had to go figure it out, and it wasn't easy on any of it.
And we walked alongside him. You talk about the car situation. We ultimately did not get him a car, and he rode a bike for 2 years through Austin. I mean, not easy, but he did it and saved up and got his own car, and he got taken advantage of in that first car that he bought, and ended up back in his bike until he got to the next place. And, when things would happen, we didn't just jump in to fix it. We asked the questions, so do you want our input on that? Or do you have it? And sometimes he would say, I'd love your input, but I'm not sure if I'm going to take it. And there was a couple decisions that we really were like, oh, I hope he chooses the right way. But, ultimately, what we did in setting those boundaries was we made him take responsibility for his choices, good, bad, or indifferent, and we would be there to pick up the pieces and help him put things back together. But along the way, he learned how resilient and strong he really was. He learned how to make mistakes and ask questions. And the biggest lesson he learned, which I'm hoping that this talk is, when we're talking about this scandal, the reality is our kids have to learn to take responsibility for their lives. And we as parents have to allow that. And that means that we don't bribe them to get into places. We don't write their essays. We don't do their scholarship applications. We don't do their school applications. If they're not filling out the application for college, and you know your child best, is it that they're resisting because they're not ready or they're not sure? Or are they resisting just because they're lazy and need a good kick in the pants? You've got to figure that out.
Well, and you can give a kick in the pants when that's appropriate. But like you said, sort that through first. And we're going through some of those things too. We have, our youngest wanted to study abroad, and we said, that's a great idea, but that one's on you. We told you what our plan was for covering your degree program. and this is a great opportunity, but that's something, you know, you'll have to do. And she just spent her spring break writing essays for scholarship applications. That's what she did every day of spring break. And she sent them to me, said, hey, could you read them over, you know, like proofread kinds of things. But I, you know, so yes, I'm helping her, but I'm not writing it for her.
Or you're not hiring someone else to write it for her.
Or hiring someone else to do it. And then the job she's gotten for this summer, interesting situation. The car thing reminded me of it because she doesn't have a car. And yes, as a family, we have 3 cars, but just with the way it worked out, she can't just take a car and leave town and have it for the summer. And so, you know, everybody's kind of looking at it and brainstorming, and she's in the same boat. It's like she all of a sudden she went, oh, I could take my bike, because we're like, she just needs to get to the grocery store. Like, how are you going to get to the grocery store? And you know, it's funny because my husband and I were talking this morning, like, we didn't have cars in college. We walked our butts through the snowstorms, yes, uphill both directions, 5 miles both ways, to get to the grocery store to get our food. You know, we figured it out. And yet our culture nowadays is this culture of a kid should have a car. And sometimes we feel derelict. And my husband at one point, he's like, well, should we buy a 4th car? I'm like, no. You know, but it went through my head too. I'm like, well, should we, and how would that work, and blah blah blah. So I think we're starting to repeat a little bit. But basically, the Mighty Parenting take on this scandal is, what happened is horrible, and people are being dealt with through the legal system. What we invite you to do is, 1, take it into your home, into your family. Have conversations with your kids and go, you know, this made me realize that sometimes parents overstep boundaries and overhelp. So 1, do you see me doing that in places where, you know, you think I shouldn't be, because we're overhelp in places they don't really want us to. And 2, you know, I'm not going to be doing that. So if you see me not doing things I used to do, that's why. And then take that conversation outside of your family. Take it out to the parenting community. Start sharing that with other people.
Ask questions in the comments below. Ask questions.
Yes. Yeah, ask questions in the comments, share this video, share a conversation. Everybody's going to be squawking about this. So instead of just complaining, because yes, it's frustrating, it's irritating, we want to yell, we want to blame people, we want to go, this is wrong and this is stupid, but that's not actually productive. So, you know, do the quick vent if you need to vent, but then go, you know, it got me thinking how we as parents tend to overhelp our kids, and start that conversation and keep it going. And yes, send people back here, send them to the videos, send them to the Mighty Parenting group or mightyparenting.com, and get them involved in changing the way that we are parenting, so that we have happy, successful, emotionally healthy adults when we are done.
Yes, because isn't that the goal?
So, that's the goal. So thanks for joining us. Sandy Fowler here.
And Judy.
Judy Davis up there, or wherever she ends up on the long-term one. And thanks for being a mighty parent and being part of our community. We appreciate you so much.